Hello and welcome to the ABA YouTube channel. Today we're going to be taking a look at some of the upcoming season's MVP candidates. This year we have a quite dense crop, mostly led by incumbent superstar Jacob Owens and reigning MVP Marcus McPhearson. Potentially, though, James Halenga could be one of the leading candidates this year. So we're going to take a deep dive into each of these different players that's talked about here, and just explain why they could potentially win MVP and who really deserves it. So the first guy we're going to look at is the front runner, Jacob Owens. Owens had a phenomenal season um, last year for Las Vegas, and we're going to pull up his profile. Um, in his really off actually sophomore season, he emerged as probably one of the top, um, I'd say 5 players in the league. He averaged 26 points per game, and is at just 24 years old, entering a contract year where he could potentially see a supermax contract from every team that has the availability. Um, Potentially going to average 27 points per game. We'll see how his effect with Jalen Okabe is. If we take a look at his roster going into the season, they have up and coming point guard Aaliyah Archibald, and DeJounte Noel, who is probably going to be by the end of the year. In my opinion, a potential late Rookie of the Year candidate. He's definitely going to have a great few weeks, and on paper, I think his stats will be the superior. However, this team, besides their big two, doesn't really have much of a supporting cast, which means um, we could be looking at huge point totals for Jacob Owens. If we go to the second person who was on the list, that is James Halenga. Halenga is, in my opinion, one of the most underrated players in the league. He's coming off of a great year with Cincinnati, and just 3 seasons ago, in his second year with Cincinnati, highlighted now, he was robbed of MVP. The dude had done everything he could to deserve MVP. He carried Cincy almost all season. You can actually tell if you look at Cincy's history since Halenga joined in 2023, the team's fortune has been completely changed. Right here, you'll see 2023, they made the conference championship. Prior to that, hadn't made a playoff game. Halenga is responsible for that. He's the team's second all-time games played, and I believe first in win shares. Yeah, first in win shares over Shaheen in just 33 more games. He's been better than Shaheen the Mean in his time in Cincinnati. This guy is a legitimate superstar, and if it isn't for injuries, this team would be going a lot farther. So we'll see if GM Billy the Kid can build around this transcendent superstar. His honestly only comparison I can think of is he's basically Kevin Durant. He's a 6'10", more of a natural small forward, plays a lot based on his athleticism, and is a great scorer and a plus defender. Halenga actually puts up really solid defensive stats, so he's a two-way player. And a bona fide superstar. We'll go over on to the next guy on my list. I believe this is where I had Jacob Anura, who's actually one of the lower overall players here, but he's been consistent for years. Anura is just a 69 overall, which you'll see actually, I think, outside the top 10 in ratings. Jacob Anura has been Detroit's franchise. He's played every season with them, and you can directly tell the one year he missed, 2023, in which he missed over 20 games, I believe, was one of their worst seasons. He's single-handedly carried this franchise every year. They've tried to bring in with various partners, including Darren Unsled, pictured now, who absolutely burnt out in 2 years with Detroit, was selected as the first ever expansion draft player. And in his other time there, his best teammate, if you look at Detroit's all-time history, is maybe Joe Sally, maybe? Ed Thompson. We're not looking at stars. Arguably, Jeremiah Fears, who's currently with the team, is the team's second best all-time player. That's not great. In just 2 seasons with the team, he's only averaged 15.8 points per game. Like, Onura is a force. The dude's walking triple-double candidate, and I see no reason he can't continue that success this season. And we're going to go a little bit faster now that we've gone outside the most likely trio. We're just going to touch on a few other guys I think have potential. I'll give some of them some highlights right now. So you have Richard Hopkins, also known as Dick Hopkins, and Haseen Green. Both are really versatile small forwards, but neither of them are really their franchise's centerpiece. Matt Pitts is still the man in Seattle, even after leaving for a year in a controversial offseason, to say the least. Hassan Green is an animal, but he isn't the even number 2 option on that team. I'd say they have their pecking order of Max Powers is the main ball handler, number 2 is Byron Powers, and 3 is Hassan Green. Um, Jay King is very high overall, but unproven. So even though he could have a monster season, I don't see him going anywhere in the MVP race. I think Muse, if anything, would be the guy there. Maybe even Morris. Ao McKinney is great, but he hasn't really developed into a superstar. He's a star for sure and a great two-way player, but he is not the franchise dynamo that I think everyone thought he was going to be. With him entering free agency, it's going to be really weird to see where his value is judged because really he's just a souped up 3-and-D player in my opinion. And it's a little disappointing as a superstar. Karl Anthony Towns could be primed for a big sophomore season, but it's rare that sophomores win the MVP. Other guys that could potentially win it are Marcus McPhearson, who's coming off a triple-double season, but MVP for fatigue has been a real thing. And Donovan Butler is coming off of a great year, but is due to take a step back, especially with Childs emerging as another star. I think it is very realistic that the guy that wins MVP, and this is my dark horse favorite after Owens and Halenga, those are my real two. My dark horse favorite is Brian Weber of Denver. Brian Weber has had a crazy career. He was a backup in Denver just a few seasons ago. But the last few seasons, he's leading this ragtag team. He has a career average of just 11 points per game. But his breakout year last season, 20-12, with uh, almost 2 steals a game, as Denver's like franchise player. One-time All-Star, but again, I think this might be his year. He could truly break out and prove to be the franchise player that Denver needs. They have best roster they've had and are coming off of an unbelievable finals run. Um, D.D. Savage deserves GM of the year here. They're going to likely be running a lineup featuring Kobe Bryant, Corona Avaris, Gary Sims, Brian Weber, and Carlton Anderson. However, Lee is definitely a possibility to start, and this team is just a really solid team. They even have the Hasbro bro, the type. So, all right, there you guys have it. I think Josh Wade is another sleeper, but all right.